Hey nappy friend, welcome back to our nappy little club. You're home now, and we saved your spot. Tonight we drift back, way back, to a place of incredible intellect and, surprisingly, quite a bit of dust. We're journeying to 9th century, Baghdad, the vibrant heart of the Islamic Golden Age, to spend a day in the life of a scholar at the legendary House of Wisdom. Imagine the warm, dry air, the distant scent of spices and baking bread, and the soft rustle of parchment instead of your duvet. The city's sanitation system was, let's be honest, something you probably wouldn't survive for more than a few hours. But here, tucked safely in your bed, you get to experience all the wonder with none of the worry. You are about to become a seeker of knowledge in a city that redefined the world. So, before your eyelids get too heavy, if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, tap that like button and subscribe to keep our sleepy adventures coming. After all, nobody wants to miss out on history, right? And while you're at it, let us know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. It's always a quiet joy to see how far our sleepy community stretches. So, dim your lights, tune into the soft, comforting fan hum, and ease gently into tonight's journey, because you're now officially in nappy community. You're not just listening, you're an essential part of our nappy family, where every night is soothing, special, and yours. You're safe, valued, and always welcome. The first thing you hear is not an alarm, but a voice. A single, clear voice soaring over the rooftops from the minaret of a nearby mosque, calling the faithful to the dawn prayer, the Fajr. It's a sound that weaves itself into the very fabric of the city, a gentle yet persistent reminder that a new day has been granted. You stir on your simple sleeping mat, the cool pre-dawn air a welcome relief from the residual heat of yesterday. Your room is sparse, a clay water jug in the corner, a small wooden chest for your few belongings, and a window that looks out onto a narrow, winding alley. You are a long way from your home in the mountains of Persia, a young scholar drawn by a gravitational pull stronger than any other, the promise of knowledge. Here, in Baghdad, knowledge is not just a pursuit. It is currency, it is status, it is the most precious commodity of all. You rise and perform your ablutions, the cool water a jolt to your sleepy senses. You dress not in silks or fine cotton, but in a simple, practical woolen robe. Your ambition is not for the material wealth that flows through this city's markets, but for the wealth contained within the scrolls and books of the caliphs' library. After a small breakfast of dates and flatbread, you step out of your modest dwelling. The city is already beginning to stir. The air is thick with the smell of damp earth, baking bread from a communal oven down the lane, and the faint, ever-present aroma of the Tigris River. Your walk to work is a daily immersion in the marvel that is Madinat al-Salam, the city of peace, as Caliph al-Mansur named it upon its founding a generation or two ago. It is a city built on logic, a perfect circle. Historians will one day laud it as a masterpiece of urban planning. You, however, just know it as home. You navigate the labyrinth of residential quarters, where mud brick houses huddle close together, their walls providing shade for one another. Soon, you emerge into one of the grand thoroughfares that lead towards the city's heart. You see the immense, fortified walls in the distance, a testament to the caliph's power. Your route takes you through the Karasan Gate, one of the 4 massive gateways punctuating the outer wall, each pointing towards a different region of the vast Abbasid Empire. Once inside the main city, you enter the bustling world of the souk. It's an intoxicating assault on the senses, yet beautifully organized. You pass through the street of the coppersmiths, the rhythmic tink-tink of hammers on metal, a percussive morning song. Then comes the district of the perfumers, where the air grows heavy with the scent of jasmine, musk, and sandalwood. You bypass the moneylenders and the textile merchants, your destination lying in a quieter, more cerebral quarter, the neighborhood of the papermakers and scribes. This is a relatively new and miraculous trade, a secret brought from the East after a fateful battle with Tang China. The availability of affordable paper, so much cheaper and more practical than brittle papyrus or expensive parchment, is the very fuel of the intellectual fire you are heading towards. Without these workshops, your own work would be impossible. Finally, you reach the complex of buildings that everyone simply calls the Beit al-Hikmah, the House of Wisdom. It isn't a single, grand edifice, as some might imagine. Later historians will debate its exact nature for centuries. Was it a formal academy? With a paid faculty? Was it merely the caliph's magnificent personal library, which he graciously opened to scholars like you? Or was it a looser collection of institutions, including translation centers and an astronomical observatory, all clustered together under the caliph's patronage? For you, living in this moment, such distinctions are academic. It is the center of your universe. It's a sprawling series of interconnected halls, libraries, and quiet courtyards, nestled against the grounds of the caliph's Golden Gate Palace. The boisterous energy of the city fades away as you pass through its gates. The guards give you a familiar, respectful nod. You are one of them. The air inside is different. It's cooler, calmer. The dominant sounds are the soft rustle of turning pages, the scratch of a reed penicillamine paper, and the low, intense murmur of voices speaking a dozen different languages. You hear the elegant cadence of Arabic, the official language of scholarship, mingled with the Greek of the original manuscripts, the Syriac of your Nestorian Christian colleagues, and the Farsi of your fellow Persians. The smell is one you've come to love more than any perfume from the soak, the dry, slightly sweet scent of aging paper, and the sharp, earthy aroma of fresh ink. You've arrived. Your small, designated carrel awaits you, a quiet space to continue your life's work. And on the reading stand, held open by two smooth stones, is a scroll by the great Greek astronomer and geographer, Ptolemy. Your task today, as it was yesterday, is to carefully, painstakingly, bring his ancient wisdom into the light of your own time. You settle into your designated space, a small wooden carrel that has become your second home. The light from a high, latticed window slices through the cavernous hall, illuminating millions of tiny dust motes dancing in the still air, each one a silent witness to the intellectual work unfolding below. Before you lies your universe for the day, Ptolemy's Syntaxis Mathematica, a monumental work of Greek astronomy that you and your colleagues simply call the Almagest, the greatest. On your left, the original Greek manuscript, a heavy scroll of aged parchment brought here at great expense from the Byzantine frontier. On your right, a clean, waiting sheet of fresh, cream-colored paper from the workshops you just passed. Its smooth surface a field of pure potential. Between them are your tools, a small, dark pot of ink made from soot and gum Arabic, and your most prized possession, your calum, a reed pen you sharpened yourself to a perfect, razor-thin point. You take a deep, slow breath, calming your mind. The task of translation is not a mechanical one. It is an act of deep listening, of bridging worlds separated by centuries, empires, and languages. You dip the tip of your calum into the inkwell, a small, satisfying sound that seems to anchor you in the profound silence of the hall. The first words you write are the Bismillah, in the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. It is both a prayer and a declaration of intent, a reminder that the pursuit of knowledge is a sacred act. Then, you begin. Your eyes move from the dense Greek lettering to the empty space on your paper. The soft, rhythmic scratch of your pen is the only sound in your immediate world, a gentle, hypnotic whisper that speaks of creation. For an hour, you are lost in the work. You are rendering Ptolemy's descriptions of celestial spheres into the flowing, mathematical precision of Arabic. But then you hit a wall. It is a single, frustratingly obtuse phrase. Ptolemy is attempting to describe the concept of the equant, a complex geometrical tool to account for the observed changes in a planet's speed. The Greek is dense, almost poetic, relying on assumed philosophical knowledge that you don't fully possess. This is the core of your daily struggle, and it is a question that historians of the future will endlessly debate. What is the true nature of your translation? Are you a faithful copyist, or an active interpreter? You could translate the phrase word for word, a direct, literal rendering. This approach has its champions here, scholars who argue that the original text is sacrosanct and must be preserved with absolute fidelity, even if the resulting Arabic is clunky or obscure. They believe that any interpretation risks corrupting the source. But your gut tells you this would be a disservice. A literal translation would be mathematically correct, but intellectually sterile. It would fail to convey the sheer elegance of Ptolemy's thought. The alternative is to find the right Arabic, scientific, and philosophical vocabulary to capture the spirit of the original. This is the path favored by the master translator, Hunayn ibn Ishaq, an Nestorian Christian whose translations of Galen are legendary for their clarity and grace. He argues that a translator must be a master of both languages and the subject matter itself. To translate, one must first deeply understand. You lean back, rubbing your temples. Your choice here will echo in the lecture halls and observatories of this empire for decades to come. No pressure. Feeling the familiar weight of the problem, you decide you are not an island. You carefully lift your sheet of paper and walk quietly across the cool flagstones of the hall. Your destination is the workspace of Mikhail, an elder scholar from a monastery in the Syrian highlands. He is a man whose first language was Syriac, a dialect of Aramaic that is much closer to the Hellenistic Greek of the manuscript than your own Persian-inflected Arabic. He is hunched over a text by Aristotle, his long gray beard almost touching the page. "Mikhail," you whisper, not wanting to break the hall's meditative spell. He looks up, his eyes kind and tired. "A moment, if you would." He nods, and you show him the passage, pointing to the vexing phrase. He squints, reading your notes, then the original Greek. He hums, a low, thoughtful sound. "Ah," he says softly. He is not speaking here as just a mathematician. He is speaking as a Platonist. The harmony he refers to is not musical, but metaphysical. It's about the inherent order of the cosmos. Mikhail suggests a specific Arabic term, one used by the philosopher Al-Kindi, that perfectly captures this blend of geometry and metaphysics. It is a key you would never have found on your own. This is the magic of the House of Wisdom. It's not just a collection of books. It is a collection of minds, a living, breathing network of knowledge, where a Christian monk can help a Muslim from Persia unlock the secrets of a pagan Greek. As you thank him, he smiles. "Make it elegant, Yusuf. They say the caliph pays by the weight of the book in gold." You both share a quiet, knowing chuckle. The story is famous throughout Baghdad, a piece of delicious, motivating folklore. No one knows if Caliph actually placed a finished translation on one side of a scale and a pile of gold dinars on the other. But the legend serves its purpose. It is a powerful, if likely exaggerated, symbol of the immense value this dynasty places on your work. It reminds you that this entire grand project, this translation movement, is a direct result of the Caliph's insatiable curiosity. You've heard the tales of his agents traveling to the farthest corners of the world, sent with chests of gold to purchase any and every scroll of ancient learning they could find, rescuing them from dusty monastery cellars and the fading libraries of the Byzantine Empire. Your work is not a private hobby. It is the centerpiece of a state-sponsored mission to gather all the world's scattered wisdom under one roof. Reinvigorated, you return to your carol. The problem that seemed insurmountable just minutes ago now feels clear and solvable. With Mikhail's insight, the path is illuminated. You dip your calm in the ink, the point making a soft sound against the ceramic. You are no longer just a copyist. You are a conduit. The beautiful cursive script flows from your hand. Your translation now imbued with a deeper understanding. A bridge of ink and insight connecting Alexandria to Baghdad, Ptolemy to the students, who will one day study your words. The sun continues its silent arc across the sky, and you work on a quiet scribe stitching worlds together. As the sun passes its zenith, another call to prayer. The ASR echoes across the city, signaling the midpoint of the afternoon. Your mind, weary from the intense focus of translation, craves a different kind of stimulation. Your back is stiff, and your eyes burn from staring at the tiny Greek characters. You carefully place a weighted cloth over your manuscript to protect it, cap your inkwell, and rise from your carrel. It is time to move from the world of words to the world of things, from theory to practice. You leave the hallowed, whisper quiet library and step out into a large, sun-drenched courtyard. The atmosphere here is immediately different. The air is warmer, the energy more kinetic. This is the outdoor laboratory, the practical workshop of the House of Wisdom. Instead of scribes hunched over desks, you see mathematicians, engineers, and astronomers clustered in small, animated groups. Their tools are not pens and paper, but gleaming instruments of polished brass and intricately carved wood. You see a magnificent astrolabe, its discs engraved with the web-like patterns of the stars, catching the sunlight. Nearby, a student carefully adjusts a large quadrant, a quarter circle of wood used for measuring angles. This is where the abstract knowledge from the books is tested against the hard reality of the physical world. Today there is a particular buzz of anticipation in the courtyard. The famed Banu Musa brothers Muhammad, Ahmad, and El-Hazan are present. These three men, brilliant mathematicians and engineers in their own right, inherited a vast fortune from their father, a former highwayman who had won the favor of a past caliph. Now, they are some of the most important patrons of the House of Wisdom, funding research, sponsoring translations, and conducting their own groundbreaking experiments. Today, they are demonstrating the results of their most ambitious project yet, a task set for them by the Caliph Al-Mu'min himself, to remeasure the circumference of the earth. Ptolemy had provided a figure centuries ago, but the Caliph, a man who trusted verification over received wisdom, wanted a new, more precise measurement using Arab instruments and Islamic science. A senior astronomer, a protege of the brothers, stands by a tall, perfectly vertical wooden post, a gnomon set in the center of a paved circle marked with fine gradations. He explains the methodology of the grand experiment. That this demonstration is based on 2 teams of their best surveyors, and astronomers were dispatched to the flat, featureless plain of Sinjar in northern Mesopotamia. One team traveled due to north, the other due to south. They walked in a straight line, one man holding the end of a long measuring rope while another walked its length, planting a stake and repeating the process over and over. All the while, a third man would periodically check the heavens with an astrolabe. They stopped only when the altitude of the pole star had shifted by one single, precise degree. By measuring the distance they had traveled to achieve that 1 degree shift, they could calculate the full 360-degree circumference of the globe. It is a stunningly simple and elegant concept, but the execution was a monumental undertaking. As the astronomer speaks, a lively debate bubbles up among the scholars gathered to watch. This isn't a lecture. It's a peer review happening in real time. One elderly scholar, stroking his henna-dyed beard, loudly questions the accuracy of the measuring ropes. Were they not treated with wax to prevent them from stretching in the midday heat, or shrinking in the cool of the night? The astronomer calmly assures him they were. Another, a fast-talking logician, worries about the flatness of the terrain. Even a small, unnoticed hill would introduce a significant error. This is science as a spectator sport, a kind of thinking. Man's game. You even notice 2 mathematicians engage in a quiet but intense wager not for money, which would be unseemly, but for bragging rights. The loser must dedicate a week to helping the winner copy a tedious set of astronomical charts. You stand beside a fellow scholar, a quiet theologian named Ibn Hamid, watching the proceedings. It is a noble thing, he murmurs in awe, to seek the true measure of God's magnificent creation. You nod in agreement. The pursuit of knowledge for its own sake is a powerful motivator here. Yet, as you contemplate this, you are joined by your pragmatic friend Mikhail, the Christian translator who helped you this morning. He smiles wryly. Noble, yes. And practical, very practical. His comment hangs in the air, touching upon a debate that is ever present in the halls and courtyards of this place. What truly drives this expensive, state-sponsored science? Is it pure, disinterested curiosity, or are there more earthly concerns at play? Historians will one day argue over this, but you, living in this moment, see the truth in both sides. A more accurate measurement of the earth allows for the creation of far better maps for the caliphs, governors, tax collectors, and army generals. But it also has a profound religious importance. Every Muslim is required to pray 5 times a day, facing the direction of the Kaaba in Mecca, the Qibla, from Baghdad. The direction is well known. But from a newly conquered province in the far reaches of Spain or the Indus Valley, calculating the Qibla accurately from anywhere in the world requires incredibly sophisticated geography and trigonometry. The sacred and the secular are not separate streams of inquiry. They are 2 currents in the same powerful river, each pushing the other forward. The demonstration reaches its climax. The Banu Musa brothers step forward. Muhammad, the eldest, announces the result of their calculations, derived from the data of the Sinjar expedition. They had found the length of a single degree of latitude to be approximately 56 2/3 Arabic miles. A quick mental calculation runs through your head as he speaks. It means the Earth's circumference is roughly 24,000 of our miles. A ripple of excited murmurs spreads through the crowd. The number is different from Ptolemy's, and it feels right. There is an elegance to it, a sense of correctness. For a brief moment, the arguments and the wagers are forgotten, replaced by a collective sense of wonder. You have just been given a glimpse of the true size of your world, not from a dusty text, but from observation, from reason, and from the long shadows stretching across this courtyard. The feeling is dizzying, a profound connection between the mind of man and the fabric of the cosmos. As the sun dips lower, the scholars begin to disperse, their minds buzzing with new data to argue about for weeks to come, leaving you in the quiet warmth of the late afternoon, feeling both very small and infinitely capable. The late afternoon sun now casts long, dramatic shadows across the courtyard, and the air begins to cool. The exhilarating energy of the astronomical demonstration has faded, replaced by a quiet sense of accomplishment. You feel the familiar pull of the library, a desire to return to the ordered, silent world of text. There is still light left in the day, and the work is never truly finished. You give a final, appreciative glance at the gnomon, now casting a long, slender finger of a shadow across the paving stones, and slip back into the great hall of the library. The atmosphere inside has shifted once more. The vast space, which was a hive of quiet activity this morning, is now significantly emptier. The light filtering through the high windows is softer, warmer, with the golden hue of approaching dusk. Only the most dedicated, or perhaps the most deadline-driven scholars remain. The silence is deeper, more profound. In this tranquil environment, every small sound, the distant turn of a page, the soft cough of an old scholar, the gentle scrape of your sandals on the stone floor seems amplified as you make your way back towards your carrel. Your path takes you by a more secluded alcove, set away from the main flow of traffic. It is here that one of the House of Wisdom's most formidable, yet least conspicuous, minds holds his unofficial court. You see him hunched over a low table, surrounded by a small fortress of stacked scrolls and loose sheets of paper. It is Muhammad ibn Musa al-Khwarizmi. You, like most junior scholars, have never spoken to him directly. He is not a teacher who holds regular lectures, nor a gregarious debater who enjoys the thrust and parry of public argument. He is a force of nature, but a quiet one, a man who seems to live most of his life in the abstract world of numbers and patterns. He is of middle age, with a wiry, energetic frame that seems to hum with restless thought. His robes are simple, and his fingers, you notice, are permanently stained with the dark brown of ink. What strikes you most is his focus. It is absolute. The world outside his small pool of light might as well not exist. He is not serenely contemplating. He is wrestling. You can see the tension in his shoulders. He mutters to himself, not complete words, but fragments of thought. He will write a series of symbols, stare at them with fierce intensity for a long moment, and then, with a sigh of frustration, scratch them out with a bold, decisive stroke of his pen. He is not merely transcribing or translating. He is forging something new in the crucible of his mind, and the process is clearly an arduous one. This is the human face of genius. You realize, not a placid god on a throne, but a tireless craftsman, grinding away at a problem until it yields its secrets, drawn by a professional curiosity you cannot resist. You find a pretext to consult a manuscript on a shelf near his alcove. From this closer, yet still respectful, vantage point you can see the nature of his work. The pages before him are unlike anything else in the library. They are not filled with the eloquent prose of history or philosophy. They are not adorned with the intricate geometric diagrams of Euclid or the celestial charts of Ptolemy. They are, to your eyes, a strange and stark landscape of calculations. You see lists of numbers, but also symbols, standing in for unknown quantities. And you see two words repeated over and over. The foundation of the new system he is building, Al-Jabr and Al-Muqbala. You know enough to understand the basics. Al-Jabr, the act of restoring or completion, refers to his method of eliminating negative terms by adding a quantity to both sides of an equation. Al-Muqbala, or balancing, is the process of canceling out identical terms from opposite sides. It sounds simple, a kind of arithmetical tidying up, but you sense its profound implications. This is a systematic, repeatable process and algorithm, though the word has not yet been coined for, finding a hidden value. He is creating a language, a powerful new syntax for solving problems. As you watch him work, you ponder a question that you've heard debated quietly among your peers. How much of this is truly new? You've studied the works of the Indian astronomer Brahmagupta and seen how he manipulated equations. You've read the surviving fragments of the Greek mathematician Diophantus, who used symbols for unknowns. And you know that the ancient Babylonians solved complex quadratic problems using procedural lists. This is the heart of a debate that will follow Al-Khwarizmi's name for centuries. Is he a revolutionary inventor, or a brilliant synthesizer? Looking at the fierce, methodical way he works, you suspect the distinction is meaningless. He has absorbed the methods of the ancients from every corner of the known world, but what he is creating is something more. He is not just collecting techniques. He is building a unified, logical system. He is turning a collection of clever tricks into a formal discipline. To gather such disparate threads and weave them into a single, elegant tapestry is an act of creative genius as profound as any new invention. Your thoughts are interrupted when a young man, clearly a courier from the caliph's court, nervously approaches Al-Khwarizmi's desk. He presents a scroll tied with a silken cord. The great mathematician looks up, his intense concentration broken. You see in his eyes a flicker of weariness, the look of a man pulled from a world of perfect forms back into the messy reality of human affairs. He unrolls the scroll. You can't see the words, but you know what it likely contains. A practical, thorny problem that the caliph's judges couldn't solve. A hopelessly complex inheritance dispute, perhaps, where a man's estate must be divided according to Sharia law between his widow, 3 sons, and 4 daughters, but only after a specific debt is paid and a charitable bequest is fulfilled. These are the messy real-world problems that his elegant abstract system is designed to unravel. He is building the father of algebra, not for sport, but for purpose. You retreat to your own desk, the image of his quiet, relentless labor, inspiring you. The house of wisdom, you reflect, is not just a museum for old ideas. It is a workshop for forging the tools of tomorrow. You sit at your own desk, the Greek text of Ptolemy before you, but your mind is elsewhere. It's lingering in that quiet alcove, captivated by the image of Al-Khwarizmi and the courier's scroll. It's one thing to calculate the circumference of the earth, a grand, philosophical, almost poetic pursuit. It's another thing entirely to be handed a messy, mundane problem of human affairs and be expected to find truth within it. The image grounds you. The house of wisdom is not a disconnected dream world. It is the engine room of a vast and complex empire, and men like Al-Khwarizmi are its chief engineers. You recall something you learned when you first arrived in Baghdad, starry-eyed and intimidated. It was in the introduction to Al-Khwarizmi's most famous work, the one you saw him laboring over, the compendious book on calculation by completion and balancing. You had read the preface. He stated his purpose with startling clarity. He wasn't writing for abstract philosophical debate. He wrote, at the direct encouragement of the Caliph Ulman, to create something of practical use for the people. His own words come back to you now. His book was intended to be a guide for all that men constantly need in their cases of inheritance, legacies, partition, lawsuits, and trade, and in all their dealings with one another, or where the measuring of lands, the digging of canals, geometrical computations, and other objects of various sorts and kinds are concerned. There it is, in plain language. The revolutionary discipline of algebra, what future generations will simply call algebra, was not born out of a desire to ponder the abstract nature of numbers. It was born because a caliph wanted his legal system to be more just, his trade to be more efficient, and his canals to be dug correctly. It was born from need, and no need was more complex, more tangled, than the laws of Islamic inheritance, the Ilm al-Furud. This field of jurisprudence is a masterpiece of divine legislation and a nightmare of fractional arithmetic. It dictates with exacting precision how a person's estate must be divided. The wife gets a share, the parents get a share, and the children get shares, with a son's portion being double that of a daughter's. Each permutation of surviving relatives creates a new and unique mathematical puzzle. You decide to test yourself, to imagine what might have been on that scroll. You conjure a hypothetical case, a common enough tragedy. A merchant dies. He leaves behind an estate of, say, 200 silver dirhams. He is survived by his wife and his 2 sons. Simple enough, you think. But then come the complications. The merchant had an outstanding debt of 20 dirhams that must be paid first. Furthermore, his will specifies that a portion of his estate in amount unknowns to be given to a freed slave who once saved his life. This unknown bequest, this thing or shay, is the variable that tangles everything. After the debt and this bequests are paid, the wife is entitled to 1/8 of the remainder, and the 2 sons are to split the rest equally. You try to solve it using traditional arithmetic. You start with 200 dirhams. You subtract the 20 dirham debt, leaving 180. Now you must subtract the thing, which is unknown. So you have 180, the thing. The wife gets 1/8 of that. The sons get 7/8 of it, to be split between them. The entire problem becomes a confusing mess of words and fractions dependent on a value you don't even know. A judge trying to solve this would be lost in a forest of what-ifs and maybes. It is a recipe for error, argument, and deep injustice. Now, you imagine Al-Khwarizmi looking at this same problem. Where you see a confusing narrative, he sees a structure. He would take the unknown bequest, the thing, and call it X. He would then translate the story into a new, powerful language. He would formulate an equation that sets out the relationships between all the parts. He would then apply his systematic methods. He would use al-Jabr completion to rearrange the terms, and al-Muqbala, balancing to simplify the equation until the unknown stood alone on one side, its value revealed, clear and indisputable. The power is not just in finding the answer. The power is in the method. It is a clear, repeatable path through the chaos. This leads your mind to a deeper question, one that is a quiet undercurrent in the intellectual life of the city. You look across the hall at a scholar deeply engrossed in a copy of Euclid's Elements, a work of pure, abstract geometry, a beautiful system that exists for its own sake. Then you think of Al-Khwarizmi's desk, a laboratory for solving messy, practical problems. Are these two impulses, the pure and the applied, at odds with each other? Or do they nourish one another? Historians may one day debate whether the abstract mathematical structures were developed first and then found a use, or if the pressing needs of society were the catalyst for the invention of the structures. Looking at Al-Khwarizmi's work, you believe you see the answer. The human mind, you muse, may have an innate fascination with patterns, with symmetry, with systems, the spirit of pure mathematics. But this fascination becomes a laser-focused tool when the needs of society present a problem that is too complex for the old ways. Al-Khwarizmi is the perfect embodiment of this synthesis. He is a master of the abstract who put his mastery to work in the service of the real. He is the bridge between the perfect forms of Plato and the dusty floor of the Baghdad marketplace. You almost have to smile, thinking of the generations of judges, merchants, and heirs who will be saved from endless headaches by this man's quiet work. His book won't just ensure that inheritances are divided correctly. It will prevent countless family feuds and lawsuits that would have festered for years. He isn't just solving for X, he's subtly engineering a more peaceful, more orderly society. As the oil lamps are lit around the great hall, casting warm, flickering pools of light into the encroaching darkness, you feel a sense of profound clarity. The work being done here is not just about preserving the past, it's about building a new language for the future. A future where even the most tangled problems might have a solution, if only you know how to ask the right question. The soft flickering glow of the oil lamps now paints the great hall in warm tones of orange and deep shadow. The world outside has surrendered to the night. But here, in the House of Wisdom, a few dedicated minds continue their work. Your thoughts, however, have drifted from the specifics of Ptolemy's epicycles. They are still with the quiet, intense man in the corner, Al-Khwarizmi. You had pigeonholed him in your mind as the father of algebra, the man who gave a new language, two numbers. But now you understand that his ambition is far, far greater. Solving for an unknown value in an equation, you realize, is not so different from pinpointing a city on a map or predicting the position of a planet in the heavens. It is all part of the same magnificent quest. To find order in the chaos, to measure and map reality itself. You have seen him at other times, not surrounded by equations, but by star charts and geographical surveys. He is the principal author of the Zejil Sindihind, a set of astronomical tables that has become the gold standard for scholars across the empire. These tables, combining Indian and Greek knowledge into a new and more accurate synthesis, allow you to calculate the position of the sun, moon, and planets for any given date. They are the essential tool that allows astronomers to predict eclipses and astrologers to cast their horoscopes. They are the mathematical backbone that allows a muezzin in distant Cordoba to know the precise moment of sunrise in his city, and a navigator in the Persian Gulf to find his way by the stars. Even more staggering is his work in geography. He is the leading figure behind the Kitbe Rat Alarg, the Book of the Image of the Earth. It is a title of beautiful simplicity for a work of breathtaking complexity. It is, in essence, a direct and audacious challenge to the master geographer of the ancient world, Claudius Ptolemy. Al-Khwarizmi and his team have taken Ptolemy's Geographia, a work held as gospel for centuries, and subjected it to rigorous review. They are correcting its errors, updating its information, and expanding it to reflect a world that has changed dramatically. The book is not a collection of drawings, but a vast, systematic list of coordinates, thousands upon thousands of them, for cities, mountains, rivers, coastlines, and islands. From the Atlantic Isles to the shores of the China Sea. It is an attempt to create a complete numerical skeleton of the known world, and this book, is merely the foundation for an even grander project, a work that is spoken of in hushed, reverent tones throughout the city, the great world map of the Caliph Alman. It is not available for public viewing, kept hidden away in a private chamber of the palace, but everyone has heard of it. You close your eyes and try to picture it, based on the rumors and whispers. It is not a sketch on parchment, but a massive tapestry woven from the finest dyed silks and threads of silver and gold. It is a work of both science and art, the culmination of all their geographical knowledge. You imagine the deep blue silk of the Indian Ocean, no longer a landlocked lake, as Ptolemy believed, but open and vast, reflecting the new knowledge brought back by Arab sailors. You see the deserts of Africa and Arabia rendered in shimmering gold thread, and the great rivers, the Nile, the Tigris, the Oxus's veins of pure silver. The cities are marked with tiny embroidered clusters, their names stitched in elegant Kufic script. It is a masterpiece, a tangible representation of the world as seen from the intellectual center of that world, Baghdad. But how is such a marvel created? This question touches on a constant, quiet debate within your scholarly community. How much of this new geography is built upon the wisdom of the ancients, and how much is from new, direct observation? From what you've seen, the answer is both. You can picture the workshop where the map is made. On one side of the room, scholars are bent over Ptolemy's ancient scrolls, respectfully but critically analyzing his coordinates, correcting his famous, long-standing error of making the Mediterranean Sea far too long. On the other side of the room, you see Al-Khwarizmi interviewing people who have just arrived in the capital. A sea captain, his skin weathered by the monsoon winds, describes the trading ports along the Swahili coast of Africa. A merchant, just returned from a 2-year journey on the Silk Road, sketches from memory the treacherous mountain passes beyond Samarkand. A diplomat, back from an embassy to the land of the Franks, describes the cold, green landscape and its network of rivers. The true genius of Al-Khwarizmi, you realize, lies in his ability to synthesize these two streams of knowledge. He must listen to the sailor's tale of a newly discovered island and then try to reconcile it with the coordinates of the ancients. He must take the merchant's hazy description of a mountain range and attempt to plot it on a precise mathematical grid. You can imagine the lively arguments, the passionate debates. Two geographers might argue for days about the true source of the Nile, that age-old mystery. One, clinging to the authority of Ptolemy, would point to the text. The other, trusting the fresh account of a trader who ventured into the lands of the Zanj, would argue for a different location based on new evidence. Al-Khwarizmi presides over it all, a patient judge weighing text against testimony, seeking a rational conclusion. You can almost hear him gently admonishing a younger scholar trying to include the mythical, jewel-encrusted Isles of Wak-Wak. If a sailor cannot give you its latitude and longitude with some consistency, it does not exist for our map. We chart what is, not what is imagined. You open your eyes and look again at your own work, Ptolemy's astronomy. It's all one seamless project. The methods of algebra are used to refine the astronomical tables. The astronomical tables are used to determine longitude for the geographers, and the geographer's map gives a physical context to the entire empire and the world beyond it. It is a closed and perfect loop of knowledge, constantly refining itself. The day is over, and an immense sense of satisfaction washes over you. You are not just a translator of old books. You are a small cog in a magnificent machine. A grand and collective effort to map the whole of creation from the smallest fraction of an inheritance to the largest ocean, using the universal and divine language of number. The day's work is truly done now. Your mind is saturated with new thoughts, and your body aches for rest. You carefully stack your papers, securing them with a smooth river stone. The thought of your simple room and sleeping mat is inviting, but you aren't quite ready to leave this sanctuary. Before you step back out into the night, you decide to do something you often do to clear your head. You take a walk through the library itself, not with a purpose, not to fetch a specific text, but simply to exist within it. With the oil lamps as your only guide, the house of wisdom transforms. The cavernous halls, which felt open and airy in the daylight, now feel intimate and mysterious. The shelves, packed with scrolls and the newer, more fashionable, bound codices, tower over you like silent cliffs, their tops lost in the deep shadows of the vaulted ceilings. The sheer volume of it all is something you can never quite get used to. You are walking through a forest where the trees are made of paper and the leaves are inscribed with the accumulated knowledge of humanity. Historians of your time estimate there are hundreds of thousands of volumes within this complex. It's a number so vast it feels abstract, but here, in the lamplight, it is a physical, overwhelming reality. The air itself feels different at night. It's heavy with the unique and comforting perfume of the library, the dry, sweet scent of aging papyrus from Egypt, the slightly sharper smell of parchment from Syria, and the crisp, clean aroma of the new paper from the city's own workshops. Underneath it all is the earthy, metallic temps of ink and the rich, leathery smell of the book bindings. You trail your fingers along the spines of the books as you walk. Each one is a portal. You wander out of the main hall of astronomy and mathematics and into the section for medicine. Here the collected works of the Greek physician Galen fill shelf after shelf, his texts now clarified and expanded by the commentaries of brilliant minds like Hanain, Ibn Ishaq. Next, you pass through the alcoves dedicated to philosophy, where the complete works of Aristotle, which had been lost to the Latin West, stand in pride of place, their logical frameworks forming the very bedrock of so much of the thinking done here. You drift past the vibrant sections on poetry, history, alchemy, and music. It is a universe, a cosmos of thought, all gathered and organized under one roof, and it is exquisitely organized. This is no mere pile of books. As you walk, you see a master librarian, a stern but respected scholar named Abbasid, overseeing the final tasks of the day. He is consulting a master catalog, a series of thick, bound volumes that function as the library's brain. In this catalog, every single book in the collection is listed by title, author, a brief summary of its contents, and its precise location within the library's intricate system. The books are grouped by subject, and within each subject, alphabetically by the author's name. It is a system of such clarity and logic that it allows a scholar to find a single scroll among hundreds of thousands. On a whim, you decide to test the system. You need a commentary on Ptolemy's work written by Theon of Alexandria almost 5 centuries ago. It might offer a different perspective on the passage you translated earlier. You approach Abbasid, bowing your head slightly in respect. He is a formidable man who is said to know the location of every important text by heart. Master Abbasid, you begin. I have need of Theon's commentary on the Almagest. He looks at you over the top of his spectacles, his gaze sharp. He doesn't just wave you in a general direction. He asks, for which chapter? Are you cross-referencing the orbital parameters or the precession of the equinoxes? The question is a small test to ensure you are not wasting his time or the library's resources. You answer him, and satisfied, he turns to a young apprentice. Theon, shelf Gamma, section 4, the 7th codex from the left. The one with the dark red leather binding. The boy nods and disappears like a ghost into the shadowed labyrinth of shelves. The process is a quiet ritual that underscores the value of these objects. They are not to be idly browsed, they are to be purposefully consulted. The apprentice returns a few minutes later with the requested book. It is a codex, not a scroll, beautifully bound in dark red leather, the title stamped in gold leaf. You hold it in your hands. It is heavy. Heavy with the weight of paper and leather, and ink, yes, but also with the weight of time. The thoughts of a man in ancient Alexandria are here, physically present in your hands in 9th century Baghdad. A profound sense of privilege washes over you, but it is tinged with an unexpected and unsettling melancholy. You look around at the vast, silent, sleeping library. It feels eternal, as permanent as the stars. And yet, a whisper of doubt enters. Your mind, can something this magnificent truly last forever? You have read of the great library of Alexandria, a wonder of the ancient world. Now scattered and gone, its contents mostly lost to fire and time. Could that happen here? The thought is absurd. This is the heart of the Abbasid Caliphate, the most powerful and enlightened empire on earth. Still, the feeling lingers. It's a subtle awareness of fragility. You cannot know the future. You cannot imagine a man named Hulagu Khan or his Mongol horde who will, according to a story told centuries from now, ride into this city. You cannot picture the legend that so many books from this very library will be thrown into the Tigris, that the river will run black with ink. Yet modern historians will debate even that story, suggesting the decline may have been a slower, more creeping decay from within, that the great intellectual flame had already begun to flicker by then. For you, here, now, the fear is not of a specific event, but of a possibility. The chilling realization that a place like this requires not just wealth and power to exist, but a specific kind of collective will, a society-wide passion for knowledge. And passions, you know, can cool. You shake off the disquieting thought. For tonight, the library is safe. It is here. It is real. You carry the heavy codex back to your carrel, its weight a comforting presence. Placing it next to your lamp, you open its cover, ready to lose yourself once more in the quiet conversation of centuries. You are a guardian for the night, safe inside a universe made of paper and ink. You gently close the heavy leather cover of Theon's ancient commentary. The book itself feels like a relic, a weighty testament to a bygone era. The pages within are thick, creamy parchment, made from the painstakingly prepared skin of a calf or sheep. Each page has a faint, almost translucent quality, and you know that to create this single volume would have required a small herd of animals and a master craftsman's labor for months. It is an object of immense value, a treasure. Then you glance at your own notes, lying beside the ancient codex. They are written on simple, flexible sheets of paper. The contrast is startling. Your notes are light, crisp, and most importantly, disposable. You could write 1,000 such pages for the cost of a single sheet of the parchment in the book before you. You run your thumb across the smooth, sized surface of your paper. It is a humble material, something so commonplace now that it's easy to take for granted. Yet, you know with absolute certainty that this simple substance is the true secret. Behind the explosion of knowledge you are living through. Without paper, the house of wisdom would be a pale shadow of itself. The grand translation movement, the obsessive calculations of Al-Khwarizmi, the endless production of new poetry and histories, none of it would be possible on this scale without this miraculous invention from the Far East. You, like every scholar in Baghdad, know the story of its arrival. It's a piece of history that has taken on the quality of a legend. You picture the scene as it has been told to you countless times. The year was 751, on the banks of the Talus River, in a valley nestled in the mountains that separate the world of Islam from the celestial empire of Tang China. An Abbasid army clashed with the Chinese forces. In the grand sweep of history, the battle itself was a minor affair, a distant skirmish on the furthest frontier of the empire. But its consequences were among the prisoners taken by the victorious Muslim governor were several Chinese craftsmen who possessed a secret far more valuable than gold or territory. They knew how to make paper. The governor, a man of great foresight, established the first paper mill outside of China in his own city of Samarkand. From there, the technology, like a seed catching the wind, traveled west along the Silk Road. It came to Damascus, to Cairo, and then, inevitably, to Baghdad. And it was here, in the heart of the empire, with its insatiable thirst for knowledge and its massive bureaucracy, that the craft was perfected and turned into a true industry. You have often walked through the district of the papermakers, and you can recall the entire sensory experience with vivid clarity. The first thing that hits you is the sound, the rhythmic, percussive thump-thump-thump of massive water-powered trip hammers, relentlessly pounding old linen rags, hemp ropes, and flax fibers into a soft, wet pulp. The workshops are steamy places, filled with huge vats where this pulp is bleached and mixed with water to create a thick oatmeal-like slurry. You have watched the master craftsman at work, a process that is part science and part ballet. A man dips a rectangular screen, a fine mesh of silk or woven reeds stretched on a wooden frame, into the vat. He lifts it out with a practiced fluid motion, giving it a slight, almost imperceptible shake to ensure the fibers settle evenly. In his screen rests a single, trembling, dripping sheet of new paper. These wet sheets are then carefully pressed to squeeze out the water and laid out on boards to dry in the sun, filling the courtyards of the workshop with a sea of white. But the process isn't over. To make the paper ready for ink, it must be sized. Each workshop has its own closely guarded recipe for this final step. A thin glaze of wheat starch, rice flour, or licorice root is applied to the surface. This sizing prevents the ink from feathering and blotting, creating the smooth, crisp writing surface that you now hold in your hand. You've always found a quiet humor in it. The city's discarded old clothes and fishing nets are being resurrected. Through this practical alchemy, into the medium for immortal philosophy and poetry, you reflect on the world before paper, a world that older scholars still remember. Knowledge was heavy, slow, and incredibly expensive. To create a personal library was a privilege reserved for caliphs and the fantastically wealthy. Debates were conducted orally, as writing materials were too precious to be wasted on drafts or arguments. Now, you live in a different reality. The availability of cheap paper has been a quiet revolution. It has greased the wheels of the entire empire. Administrators can now keep meticulous records, merchants can issue letters of credit, and scholars like you can afford to take copious notes, to draft and redraft, to make mistakes, and simply start again on a fresh sheet. This touches upon a subtle debate among the thinkers of your time. Some proclaim that paper has instantly and completely democratized knowledge. Others are more measured. They argue that the revolution is a slower, more gradual one, and you see the truth in that. You look again at the old book and your new notes. Parchment is still used for the most important documents, the caliphs' official decrees, lavish copies of the Quran, and legally binding contracts valued for its prestige and its proven durability. Paper and parchment coexist. The change is not a sudden flood that sweeps away the old world, but a steadily rising tide, lifting all boats. Historians of the future might see the Battle of Talas as a single, revolutionary moment, but living through it, you see the more complex, overlapping reality of how a new technology is truly adopted. The oil in your lamp begins to sputter, a sign that the night is deep and it is truly time to depart. You carefully gather your precious sheets of paper. They feel light in your hands, but their significance is immense. This material, you think, is the unsung hero of your age. the silent partner to every philosopher, poet, scientist, and clerk who is building this golden civilization. It is the stuff that dreams and databases are made of. You finally gather your papers and step out from the deep silence of the library complex into the living, breathing night of Baghdad. The air is cool now, a welcome balm after the stuffy warmth of the lamplit hall. 1,000 stars glitter in the clear desert sky, a celestial map. You feel you understand a little better now than you did this morning. Instead of turning towards the narrow alley that leads to your modest room, tonight you head in the opposite direction, towards the wealthy Kark district, where the Tigris River laps against the gardens of luxurious villas. You have received a rare and coveted invitation. Al-Hazan, a prominent pearl merchant known for his sharp mind and even sharper patronage of scholars and poets, is hosting a majlis, an evening salon, and you have been asked to attend. You arrive at a set of high gates, which open into a stunning courtyard. The sound of a bubbling fountain fills the air, and the scent of night-blooming jasmine hangs heavy in the garden. This is a world away from your simple existence. Plush carpets from Persia are scattered on the polished marble floors, and servants move silently through the rooms, offering guests chilled fruit, cordials, and small plates of candied nuts and dates. In a corner, a musician plucks a soft, meditative melody from an oud, the sound weaving itself through the low hum of conversation. But despite the opulence, this is no mere party. The currency here is not wealth, but intellect. This is an arena for the mind. You look around the main reception hall and see a living portrait of the city's diverse intellectual landscape. There is your friend Mikhail, the Nestorian Christian translator, deep in conversation with a renowned Jewish physician. From the city's hospital, you spot a small group of sharp-faced men whom you recognize as Mutazilites, the rationalist school of Islamic theologians who champion free will and the primacy of reason. In a corner, speaking with the host, is a Zoroastrian scholar, his distinctive white robes and quiet dignity setting him apart. He is a master of ancient Persian wisdom and a formidable logician. It is a gathering that would be unthinkable in almost any other city in the world, a testament to the caliphs' tolerance and the vibrant cosmopolitan spirit of Baghdad. After a time, the host Al-Hazan claps his hands gently for attention. The conversations subside, and the musician's oud falls silent. He is a gracious host, with a warm smile but eyes that sparkle with intelligence. "My friends," he begins, his voice filling the room. "Welcome. We are blessed with many of the city's finest minds tonight. Let us not waste this opportunity on idle chatter. I wish to propose a question for our consideration, a topic I have been pondering myself." He pauses, letting the anticipation build. The philosophers of the Greeks, particularly the master Aristotle, teach us that reason is the highest faculty of the human soul. My question is this: is this faculty of reason, on its own, sufficient to guide a person to ultimate truth? Or is divine revelation, as given to us by the prophets, an essential and necessary guide, without which reason will inevitably falter? A thrill runs through the room. This is one of the great questions of the age. The host has lit the fuse on a philosophical firework. What follows is not a chaotic, shouting argument, but a carefully structured debate, a testament to the established etiquette of the majlis. The host acts as the moderator, ensuring the discourse remains civil and logical. One of the scholars is the first to speak, arguing elegantly that since reason is a gift from God, it must be a perfect gift, capable of leading humanity to all truths. To suggest otherwise, he implies, is to question the perfection of the Creator himself. Then, the host gestures to the Christian, Mikhail. Mikhail thanks him and, using the very tools of Aristotelian logic he has been translating, counters that reason, while powerful, is flawed by human weakness and sin. It can show us the good, he argues, but it cannot give us the strength to achieve it. For that divine grace, a form of revelation, is necessary. The debate moves around the room, each speaker building on or refuting the points of the last. It is a dazzling display of intellectual agility. You are struck by the shared language of the discussion. Everyone, regardless of their faith, is using the framework of Greek philosophy as the common ground for their arguments. To make a point based purely on emotion, or a dogmatic appeal to authority without logical support, would be seen as a sign of a weak mind. At one point, a young passionate poet leaps to his feet and begins an impassioned defense of faith, only to be gently quieted by the host, who reminds him with a smile, "Your passion is a credit to your heart, my friend, but let us return to the cool, clear path of logic." As you listen, you are caught in the powerful current of the debate. It feels like a genuine, open-minded search for truth. And yet, a more complex thought forms in your mind, touching on a question that future historians will vigorously debate. How sincere is this stunning display of tolerance? You look at the host, a devout and powerful Muslim. You think of the caliph, whose soldiers guaranteed the peace that makes this evening possible. Is this a truly level playing field, or is it a magnificent and sophisticated form of intellectual theater? What would happen if the Zoroastrian scholar, with some clever, unanswerable paradox, were to truly corner the theologians and demonstrate a logical flaw in the concept of prophecy itself? Would his victory be applauded, or would it lead to a dangerous fall from favor? You sense an invisible line, a boundary that all the participants are implicitly aware of. The debate is free, but perhaps not absolutely free. Are you witnessing true freedom of thought, or a masterfully curated performance of it, designed to sharpen the minds of the faithful, but never to genuinely threaten the foundations of the state? The thought is a sobering one, but it doesn't diminish the exhilaration you feel. You are a junior scholar, here only to listen and to learn, and you are receiving an education that is impossible to find in any book. You are seeing ideas come alive. You are watching as the ancient wisdom of Greece is being wielded as a living tool, used to build, defend, and probe the very foundations of belief. The majlis eventually winds down, not with a winner or a final answer, but with a respectful and mutual understanding of the complexities. The host thanks the speakers, and the atmosphere softens once more into social conversation. You slip out of the villa, your mind buzzing. The walk home through the quiet streets of Baghdad will be a long one. As you replay every argument and counter-argument, a silent participant in the never-ending debate. Several days have passed since the exhilarating debates at the merchants' majlis. You have settled back into your comfortable and predictable routine in the quiet halls of the House of Wisdom. The memory of the philosophical fireworks has faded into a pleasant intellectual hum, fuel for your solitary work on Ptolemy's text. You are deep in concentration, trying to decipher a particularly thorny passage about lunar parallax. When a shadow falls across your desk, you look up, annoyed at the interruption, but the words of complaint die in your throat. Standing before you is not a fellow scholar, but an official from the palace. He is dressed in shimmering green silk, a stark contrast to your own simple, ink-stained woolen robe. He doesn't speak. He simply unrolls a small scroll and presents it to you. It is a summons. You are to present yourself for an audience with the commander of the faithful, the Caliph Ulman himself. A cold wave of fear, sharp and immediate, washes over you, completely eclipsing the scholarly pride you might have felt. An audience with the Caliph is not a casual chat. This is the absolute ruler of the known world, a man whose quietest whim can mean the difference between immense fortune and utter ruin. Your world is one of text, theory, and quiet contemplation. You are about to step into the roaring furnace of absolute power. The rest of the day is a blur of nervous preparation. You wash your best robe, which is merely a slightly less stained version of your everyday one. You trim your beard with a trembling hand, praying you don't make a mess of it. You try to eat, but your stomach is in knots. You are not worried about assassins or political intrigue. You are terrified of making a grammatical mistake in classical Arabic, or misstating a planetary position, or simply forgetting how to speak in the presence of such power. It feels, you think, with a touch of dark humor, like the final examination for a class you didn't even know you were taking. At the appointed hour, the same silk-clad official returns to escort you. You leave the familiar, comforting confines of the library and enter the grounds of the Golden Gate Palace proper. The transition is instantaneous and overwhelming. The guards here are not the friendly, familiar faces of the library. They are towering silent soldiers from the caliphs, personal guard, their polished helmets and chainmail glinting in the sun. The very air feels different, heavier. The scale of the architecture is designed to make a man feel small and insignificant. You are led through a series of courtyards and antechambers, each more opulent than the last, a journey designed to systematically strip you of your confidence. You walk on floors of polished marble that shine like mirrors. The walls are covered not in plaster, but in intricate mosaics of colored glass and gold leaf that glitter and dance in the light from high-arched windows. You pass fountains carved from single blocks of alabaster, their water splashing with a sound that seems impossibly pure. Then you see it, the marvel you have only ever heard described in hushed, fantastic tales, the silver tree. It stands in the center of a vast courtyard, a life-sized, shimmering creation of hammered silver. On its intricate branches sit dozens of birds, exquisitely crafted from gold and encrusted with rubies and emeralds. As you draw near, a low whistling sound begins, and through some hidden, ingenious mechanism of bellows and pipes, the golden birds begin to chirp and sing, their mechanical melodies echoing in the vast space. The display is so beautiful, so impossibly luxurious, that it is terrifying. This is not just wealth. It is a statement of power so vast it can afford to create its own nature. Finally, you reach the doors of the main audience hall. They swing open silently, and you are ushered inside. The chamber is immense, its ceiling so high it seems to be a piece of the sky. At the far end, on a magnificent golden throne raised on a dais, sits the caliph. He is not alone. Several senior scholars are with him, including the Banu Musa brothers, who are presenting a celestial globe they have constructed based on their recent findings. The caliph is listening intently, his posture that of an engaged intellectual, not a bored monarch. This is the central paradox of his reign, a question historians will one day ponder. Is he a remote, untouchable despot, or is he the scholar-in-chief of his empire? Your name is announced, your voice swallowed by the enormous room. You walk forward, your simple robe feeling like a beggar's rags, your footsteps echoing on the marble. The caliph dismisses the Banu Musa brothers with a nod and turns his gaze upon you. His eyes are sharp, penetrating, and fiercely intelligent. You feel as though he is reading not just your face, but the very contents of your mind. You are the young Persian, he says, his voice calm but resonant with absolute authority, the one translating Ptolemy's Almagest. Your supervisor tells me you have found a discrepancy in the tables concerning the orbit of Venus. Your heart pounds in your chest. He is not just a patron who signs the decrees for funding. He is an active participant who reads the reports. He knows the details. You summon every ounce of your courage, bow your head, and begin to speak. You explain the issue, a subtle but significant difference between Ptolemy's predicted position and the more recent observations made from the Baghdad Observatory. You detail the linguistic ambiguity in the original Greek that might account for some of the error. The caliph listens without interruption, his gaze unwavering. When you finish, he asks a follow-up question, one of such technical acuity that it makes it clear he has a deeper understanding of the subject than you could have possibly imagined. You answer him as best you can. The exchange lasts for perhaps 5 minutes, but it feels like a lifetime. You realize the terrifying reality of your situation. Your patron is also your most rigorous and demanding peer reviewer. And he just happens to be a man who holds the power of life and death. The worlds of scholarship and power, which you had always imagined as separate spheres, have just collapsed into a single, terrifying point right where you stand. Finally, he seems satisfied. He gives a curt, almost imperceptible nod. Good. Work. Continue. It is a dismissal. You bow again, lower than before, and walk backward away from the throne, your legs shaking with relief. The official escorts you out of the hall, past the silent guards and the singing golden birds. As you step back out into the sunlit world, you feel fundamentally changed. The quiet, safe bubble of the House of Wisdom has been burst. You now understand that your scholarly life is not a right. It is a privilege, a fragile gift granted by the will of the man on that throne. The gold of the caliph does not just pay for the ink and paper. It sets the terms, asks the questions, and, at all times, demands results. The years pass, as they always do, one season bleeding into the next, marked not by dramatic events, but by the quiet turning of pages and the slow accumulation of knowledge. You are no longer the young, nervous Persian scholar, easily intimidated by a summons to the palace. You are now a senior member of the House of Wisdom, a man with a graying beard and a reputation for meticulous work. Your own translations are now consulted by students, and you occasionally preside over debates yourself. Yet, as you sit in the great hall of the library, in the very same carrel you have occupied for decades, you cannot escape a feeling of profound and unsettling change. The Golden Age, you fear, is slowly losing its luster. It is not one single thing you can point to, no catastrophic event. It is a slow, creeping decay, like a magnificent tapestry gradually fading in the sun. The great Caliph Alman, the philosopher king who conversed with you about Ptolemy as an equal, is long dead. His successors have been different men, more concerned with rebellions on the frontiers, the intrigues of their Turkish generals, and the rising power of rival dynasties. The political unity of the empire, which once seemed as solid as the earth itself, has begun to fracture. The immense wealth that flowed into Baghdad, funding every grand experiment and translation project, has dwindled. The chill you feel is more than just political or economic. It is a change in the very intellectual climate of the city. The vibrant, freewheeling majlis salons of your youth are a rarity now. When they do occur, the debates feel more cautious, the participants more guarded. A new, more conservative school of theology has gained prominence, one that looks upon the rationalism of the Greek philosophers with deep suspicion. The word heresy, once a charge reserved for the most extreme outliers, is now whispered more freely. There is a palpable sense that certain questions, the very questions that animated the salons of your youth, are now considered dangerous to ask. You see it in the eyes of the younger scholars, a hesitation, a looking over the shoulder, that was not there before. This is the heart of a question that will plague historians for 1,000 years. What caused the flame of science to flicker? In your world, was it the external pressure of invasions, the internal rot of political instability, or was it this, a slow and deliberate closing of the mind, a cultural shift away from open inquiry towards a more rigid orthodoxy? You do not have the perspective to know the answer. You only feel the growing chill in the air. The effect on the House of Wisdom is undeniable. It still stands, a magnificent and revered institution, but it feels different. It is less a laboratory for forging new knowledge, and more a museum for preserving the glories of the past. The ambitious state-funded projects, the mapping of the world, the measurement of the heavens have largely ceased. Fewer new manuscripts are being acquired from abroad. The buzzing, creative energy has been replaced by a more sedate, quiet. The institution has become old. In this new, more uncertain climate, you find your focus shifting. The transmission of knowledge feels less like a state-sponsored enterprise and more like a personal sacred duty. You have taken on students of your own. and you see in one of them a brilliant young man from Andalusia named Ibn Fadl, the same fire that once burned in you. You know that his true education will not come from the library's increasingly staid curriculum, but from the direct connection between master and apprentice. This is the new way of survival, a kind of intellectual inheritance. One evening, you invite Ibn Fadl to your home. You sit him down and bring out not the library's official texts, but your own personal collection. You show him your copy of your own translation of Ptolemy's Almagest, the work of your life. But it is not just Ptolemy's words on the page. The margins are filled with 30 years of your own annotations, written in a cramped, spidery script. Here a note where you question one of Ptolemy's calculations. There, a cross-reference to an observation from a Persian astronomer that contradicts the Greek master. In another spot, a philosophical question about the nature of a geocentric universe that you would no longer dare to ask in a public forum. This, you tell him, placing the heavy volume in his hands, is where the real work is done, not in the clean, finished copies, but here, in the margins, in the arguments we have with the masters. You are not just giving him a book. You are passing on a living tradition of critical thought. You are entrusting him with your doubts, your questions, your corrections. In an age where the grand institutions are beginning to falter, this personal chain of custody is the only thing you can truly rely on. This is how the flame will be kept alive. In his eyes you see not just gratitude, but a fierce, intelligent understanding. He sees the torch you are passing him, and in that moment, your melancholy is touched by a flicker of hope. Perhaps the great, centralized age of discovery is ending here, in Baghdad. But the seeds you and your colleagues have cultivated for a century have been scattered by the wind. They have been carried in books and in the minds of scholars like your student, back to the far corners of the Islamic world, to Cairo, to Cordoba, to Toledo. You cannot imagine the path this knowledge will take, the other cultures it will enrich, the distant European Renaissance it will one day help ignite. You only know that you have done your part. You have tended the flame, and now you have passed it on. You look out your window at the setting sun. The brilliant, energetic noon of the Golden Age has passed. It is now a long, beautiful, and somber twilight. You feel a profound sadness for what is being lost, but not despair. You are a link in a great golden chain, a single echo in the long passage of time. The future of the knowledge you cherish now rests in other hands. You sit by your window, an old man now, looking out over the rooftops of a city that feels both familiar and increasingly foreign. Your work is done. The translations are complete. Your own commentaries are written, and your most promising student, the bright-eyed Ibn Fadl, has taken your teachings and your annotated books back with him on the long journey to his home in Al-Andalus, the sun-drenched land of Islamic Spain. You will not see him again. You do not know the fate of the knowledge you have placed in his hands. You can only hope that you have passed the torch successfully, that the flame will not be extinguished in the growing twilight. You close your eyes, and the story of your life's work fades into the gentle quiet of history. But the journey of the ink you so carefully laid on paper is just beginning. You cannot see it, but let us follow it for a moment, down through the centuries. The book you gave your student, your life's work, is studied and treasured in the great libraries of Cordoba and Seville. It is copied by other scribes, your marginal notes treated with as much reverence as the original text. Generations pass. The political winds of the Iberian Peninsula shift dramatically. Christian kings from the north push south in their long Reconquista cities that were once beacons of Islamic learning, like Toledo, fall under new rule. And in these cities, a new and astonishing chapter begins. In a strange and beautiful echo of the work you once did in Baghdad, a new translation, movement is born. But this time, the knowledge flows in the opposite direction. In a dusty workshop in Toledo, a Jewish scholar, a man who is fluent in Arabic and the local Spanish vernacular, takes a copy of your work on Al-Khwarizmi. Beside him sits a Christian monk from England, a man who knows Latin and Spanish, but not a word of Arabic. The Jewish scholar reads your careful Arabic prose aloud, translating it into the common tongue. The Christian monk listens intently, and then renders that meaning into the formal, universal Latin of the European Church. It is a slow, painstaking process, a bridge of voices connecting three cultures. Your work, born in Baghdad, is being reborn in a language you never knew, for a civilization you never met. In this act of translation, something both curious and profound happens. Your language, the language of your scholarship, begins to seep into this new world. When the translators come to Al-Khwarizmi's Kitb al-Jabr wal Muqbala, they decide the full title is too cumbersome. They shorten it, seizing upon the key concept. Your meticulous term al-Jabr, the completion, enters Latin as algebra. The author's own name, Al-Khwarizmi, becomes Latinized as algorithmy, and his systematic, step-by-step method of solving problems becomes known forever as an algorithm. Even the stars you charted are renamed in your tongue. The star you knew as Aldebaran, the follower, becomes Aldebaran. The name you recorded for the hunter's shoulder, Yad al-Jassa, is heard and transcribed as Betelgeuse, without ever knowing it. You, the quiet scholar from Baghdad, have given a new vocabulary to the world, christening the disciplines and the very stars of a future age. The freshly translated books, copied onto European parchment, begin their slow migration. North, they find their way into the fledgling universities of Bologna, Paris, and Oxford. To the scholars there, these books are a revelation, a flood of light after centuries of relative darkness. For the first time, they have access to the full, unadulterated works of Aristotle, the advanced medical knowledge of Ibn Sina, the groundbreaking optics of Ibn al-Haytham, and the powerful new mathematics of algebra. Future thinkers will argue for centuries about what happened next, in a long and complex debate you cannot possibly imagine. Some will say that the flickering torch you passed on was used to light a great new bonfire in Europe, that the Renaissance was born directly from the womb of this rediscovered knowledge, a great and noble debt to your civilization. Others will argue that the story is more complex, that European scholars were not just passive recipients, but active agents who sought out this knowledge and transformed it to answer their own unique questions, igniting their own different kind of fuel. They will debate whether it was a simple transmission or a radical reinvention. But you are not concerned with these debates. You only know the quiet work of your hands. The legacy is not in the argument, but in the results. A Polish astronomer named Copernicus, struggling to devise a new model of the cosmos, will study a Latin translation of the work of astronomers from the Moraga school in your native Persia. Thinkers who had already developed sophisticated mathematical critiques of Ptolemy's system, critiques that you yourself had hinted at in your scribbled notes in the margins. An Italian artist named Leonardo da Vinci will find inspiration in the translated works on optics to better understand perspective and light. The great merchant houses of Florence and Venice will use the simple, powerful tools of algebra to balance their books, fueling the economic engine of a new era. None of them will ever know your name, Yusuf the scholar. They will never picture you in your dusty carrel, or feel the nervous energy of your audience with the caliph, or sense your quiet melancholy as you watched your own age begin to fade. But you are there. You are an invisible but essential thread in their magnificent new tapestry. You are the echo of Baghdad's ink in the dawn of Florence. Your legacy is not a monument of stone, but a living current of thought, a river of knowledge, that flowed from your hands through deserts and over mountains, across seas and centuries, to nourish minds in lands you never knew existed. Your part in the story is over, and it was enough. And so our journey to 9th century Baghdad comes to a gentle and quiet close. The story of the scholar and his world now fades, like a dream upon waking, leaving behind only the softest of impressions. Let the memory of that place settle around you like a warm blanket. Feel the imagined weight of an ancient, leather-bound book in your hands. Recall the unique, comforting scent of a universe made of paper and ink. Picture the warm afternoon sun in the courtyard, the long, slow-moving shadows marking the peaceful passage of time. Hear the distant rhythmic tap of a coppersmith's hammer from the souk, and the soft hypnotic scratch of a reed pen on a fresh sheet of paper. The great questions and debates of the majlis, the astronomical calculations, the political intrigues of the caliph's court hall, of that can melt away now. The work is done. The intellectual energy can soften into a deep and profound quiet. The legacy of that golden time, the river of knowledge that flows from that distant past to our present, continues on its way without any effort from you. Its currents are deep and silent, and you can simply float upon them, letting them carry you gently towards sleep. You are not in a bustling ancient city. You are here, now, in the perfect safety and comfort of your own space. You are not wrestling with complex translations or worrying about an audience with a powerful ruler. There is nothing you need to solve, nothing to figure out. No problems demand your attention. There is only the simple, soothing reality of this moment. The gentle rise and fall of your own breathing. The feeling of the soft fabric against your skin. The quiet hum of the world outside your window. Allow your thoughts to become as light and untethered as the dust motes you pictured dancing in the lamplight of that great library. Let them drift and settle, finding their own peaceful rest. The night is a sanctuary, just as the library was for our scholar. It is a place of peace, of restoration, and of profound, quiet stillness. You've reached the end of another cozy nappy tale. Sleep well, and remember you're always welcome here. Sweet dreams, nappy friend.